Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Lincoln Riley and USC heading into Saturday night hosting Michigan, and it feels like one of the most important games of Lincoln Riley's tenure at USC. And look, I'm not going to go as far to say his job is on the line Saturday night, but I'll tell you what does feel like it's on the line: the confidence of the fan base. And y'all have let me hear it in the comment section all week long. This is a game where it's an opportunity for Lincoln Riley to show this fan base that we're going in the right direction, especially along the lines of scrimmage in this conference. Because you look at USC year one in the Big Ten, it was very clear to anybody who watched this football team, we did not have the caliber of bodies. We did not have enough bodies to play quality football along the lines of scrimmage in this conference. Going into 2025, you wanted to see some improvement. And quite frankly, against Illinois, it wasn't good enough. You have to see significantly better play, specifically from that USC defensive line in this football game. Here's the other thing I'll say, and it's kind of a nice segue to get into what I really want to talk about, and that is an opportunity on the recruiting trail. Because as much as it matters to send a positive message to the fan base, also matters about what message you are sending to the kids at the high school ranks, not only in 2026, but in 2027 as well. When you think of line of scrimmage teams in this conference, it's just a fact that right now, USC is not at the forefront, right? A team like Michigan is. So if USC can go at home, get this one done, and show that they are going in the right direction along the lines of scrimmage, think about the message that it will send to the kids at the high school ranks. And you best believe, like USC, Michigan, they're going to be going head to head with plenty of line of scrimmage players over the next couple of years. This one feels really damn big for USC on the recruiting trail as well. And I kind of want to get into, where USC is going on the recruiting trail with this roster. To the USC fans who've been rocking with the boys the last couple of years, there's not a conversation that I enjoy more than talking about roster building in this era of college football. Extremely fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, hey, USC fans, number one, I would love to hear thoughts and opinions on what I have to say regarding where this program is going. How long is it going to take? Would love to hear from you guys in the comment section, because here's the beauty of it. I don't think every USC fan is going to agree with what I have to say. So please let it fly in the comment section. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, this is where I want to focus on. USC is bringing in a freaking awesome class in 2026. It is ranked the number one class in the cycle. I firmly believe it is the number one class as well. I think there are a couple of guys that are committed to USC that are significantly underrated to the recruiting services. What specifically stands out? What they're doing along the lines of scrimmage, right? But here's what I want to focus on. You can't just sign one class and snap your fingers and have it all be fixed, right? We cannot ignore that Lincoln Riley at USC has done a really poor job preparing this program to usher into the Big Ten. And go look at his past recruiting classes. Number one, it's been very heavy in the transfer portal, not enough focus on the high school ranks, and specifically not enough focus along the lines of scrimmage. You have to stack multiple classes that look like this one to get USC where they want to go. I mean, you start looking at, and that is probably the fundamental issue that I have with what Lincoln Riley did when he first got to USC was he chased that flash in the pan, right? When I first got to USC, I think you would ask Lincoln Riley, hey, what was your plan? He goes, we're going to dump all our resources into the transfer portal. We're going to try to win a lot of games early, and then hopefully that momentum will get going on the recruiting trail as well. Now, the problem was, did a really good job year one. Obviously brought over Caleb Williams, brought over Jordan Addison. This USC team won a lot of football games that first year under Lincoln Riley, and then he tried to do the same thing year two. And while he was trying to do the same thing year two, what did he ignore? Man, he ignored the high school ranks again. And so where you found yourself in 2024, and even to an extent in 2025 as well, is we don't have a good enough pipeline of high school talent, specifically when it comes to the line of scrimmage, because I say this all the time. It is really hard to address that position group going into the portal. mean, go look at the guys that USC has brought in. They went out and spent a ton of money on Keyshawn Silver, spent some money on Josh Jarrett, John Ray Reed at center, DJ Wingfield, who can't even play for USC. I guess what I'm trying to say is that you tried to address some of the line of scrimmage question marks in the portal. You just flat out can't. You can't find a guy like Tom Tom that exists in the portal because those guys don't really exist. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is that for the multiple years that USC was ignoring the high school recruiting trail, dumping their time, effort, and resources into the transfer portal, there was this gap of talent that was getting created with this USC program. And you can't fix that gap of talent with just 1 year, which kind of brings us into the 2027 class. But I do want to give my take on 2026. The two things I love: one, man, you talk about doing your best to snap your fingers and fix line of scrimmage play. USC's done that in 2026. They got multiple guys that I think will play a role early for USC next year. I think Kenny Pep is going to have a chance to start, especially if Elijah Page decides to go to the NFL. I firmly believe that Tom Tom will be in the rotation. I think Jamian Winfield will be in the rotation immediately. I think Luke Waffle will immediately be in the rotation. You got a bunch of guys that are not only really good football players that will come in and immediately, I believe, contribute for USC. And the other thing I love is, man, we ain't playing defense. Like, none of these guys are visiting other schools. In fact, half of this class is going to be on campus tomorrow night for visits during that Michigan game. I love what Chad Bowden is doing. What we need to focus on, though, is that one class ain't enough. We got to stack another elite class in 2027, which gets us into the conversation of, hey, what is it going to look like? USC's got 0 commitments in 2027. But the thing I love, though, man, that they are working really hard, specifically in the state of California. I think you're going to see a lot of commitments pop really early for USC in 2027 because they've been on these local kids hard and they got in on them early, which is something historically Lincoln Riley has not done at USC. But it is going to be a smaller class. And so what is it going to have to look like? It's going to be a little bit of a smaller class because you brought in a monster one in 2026. You got to be really calculated and you got to focus in on top end talent. And I firmly believe it's got to be focused on the line of scrimmage once again. Because again, I don't think one class is going to fix the line of scrimmage gap. We got to stack another one in 2027, which gets me, sorry, I'm talking a little fast here, which gets me to some of the names that will be on campus. Number one, top 10 kid nationally. IMG kid, he's from the state of Louisiana, Zyron Forstall, currently playing his ball at IMG. The first thing that I say is I love how he would fit into USC's defense from a skill set standpoint. Because go look at the edge defenders that Lincoln Riley has brought in, and I should say more Chad Bowden brought in 2026. Like heavy-handed, really physical dudes. You know, think about that Anthony Lucas mold. Well, you also want guys who can rip off the edge and get really in. And I'm not saying Luke Waffle and a guy like Samote. I'm not saying those guys can't. I'm saying a guy like Zyron, he might not be as big and physically imposing as a guy like Luke Waffle or a guy like Samote, but man, can this guy rip. He kind of reminds me of a Michigan player in Jay-Sean Barham, who we're going to see tomorrow night. You can put him at off-ball linebacker, put him in a two-point stance. If you want to pin his ears back and get after the passer coming off the edge, this guy's your guy. I don't know if USC has a ton of these guys committed in 2026, which makes this kind of skill set, to me, really important in 2027. But you want to continue to stack these kind of bodies, these NFL dudes, because once again, trying to find an edge rusher like this kid that has this kid's ability in the transfer portal somewhere down the road, it don't happen. It ain't going to happen because those players don't exist in the portal. If you're that caliber player, you don't find yourself in the portal. Here's another name, and this kind of body, arguably more important, right? Casey Curry. As much as I love pass rush production from the inside of the defensive line, and it's something why I love Tom Tom the way I love Tom Tom, is I think Tom Tom is a stalwart guy in the run game. You're just not going to move him off the line of scrimmage, but also, I mean, he's got some real quicks and can give you pass rush production. Casey Curry, I think, gives you some pass rush production, but more of that two-gapper, I'm going to eat some double teams up and do the dirty work, which it ain't flashy to talk about these kids, but tell me what the biggest skill set was that USC was missing against Illinois. This kind of guy. I mean, USC was getting knocked back pretty damn consistently against that Illinois offensive line because a guy like Devin Tompkins on first down, he's not a guy that you want eating up double teams. The guys that you brought in through the portal to play that role, Keyshawn Silver, Josh Jarrett, they just ain't good enough, or at least have not been good enough to this point in 2025. A guy like Casey Curry, he's going to play that role for you. Same thing with a guy like Elijah Herman, who he's listed at 280. He looks a little bit bigger than 280 at this point. I love, especially Cali kids. When you have a guy like Elijah Harmon in your backyard, guy like Casey Curry in your backyard, you cannot afford to have those guys go to Oregon or have those guys go to Oklahoma. You need to win these battles at the high school ranks, because going back to what we've said a million times, you ain't going to find these guys all that often in the portal. You need 2 straight classes of these kind of players coming in along the lines of scrimmage. And if you can do that, the sky's the limit for this football team. And look, I'll say this, regardless of the outcome, even if USC loses tomorrow night, if you hold on to the class you have in 2026, you stack another class in 2027. The one thing I trust is Lincoln Riley to score points, and you continue to hire in. I get Coach Lynn is under some fire in terms of what that defense looked like against Illinois. I'll say this: there is far more evidence of Coach Lynn being a good defensive coordinator than one really sloppy game against Illinois. And I'll say this again: USC was just really banged up, and I heard the rumors about the food poisoning, but when you lose a guy like Kamari Ramsey that was already kind of sliding into nickel, probably should be playing safety. It's really, really hard to be a consistent defense with some of the injuries that USC's been dealing with. I still think Coach Lynn's a good defensive coordinator. I think he still needs these kind of bodies and the talent to continue to come into this program. Much as we want to talk about the X's and O's, and I love talking scheme, man, it's about the Jimmies and Joes, specifically along the lines of scrimmage. And when you want to have the elite Jimmies and Joes, you got to start at the high school rank, something that USC hasn't done or did not do early under Lincoln Riley. I think USC is doing everything they need to do to get back to that national championship caliber program. What I mean by program, I specifically chose program, not team, right? National championship teams when you have a team that's really good. The programs are the ones that compete for national championships every single year. Think about a team like Georgia. Think about a team like Ohio State. Even when they're not at their best, they're still in that conversation. That is the vision that Chad Bowden has for USC. And the only way to get to that is operating right at the high school ranks. And you can't just snap your fingers and immediately say, all right, we did things right for 6 months. We're competing for national championships. No, it's a process. And you got to do that process and stack a lot of bricks. USC's in the process of doing it. 2026 ain't going to be good enough. We got to get that 2027 cycle rolling too. It's a big opportunity Saturday night, not only to really put a spark in 2025 season, but continue the momentum that you have off the field, which to me is probably most important for USC over the next 5 years. That's why we break down these commitments in the summer, man, because that's how it plays out. The teams that got better football players, the teams that have won on the recruiting trail, normally the ones that win on Saturdays in the fall. Close it out there. Really, really excited for this football game. The amount of support this fan base has shown the boys continues to be amazing. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.